Welcome back, Dog Nation. It's time to wake up and lock it in because we're back with this week's episode of the Baxter Street Boys. I'm your host, Cole Wilcox, joined as always by my co-host, Jake Gordon, and our talentless producer, Griffin Rudy. We got a lot to talk about this week. Lots happened between media days, recruiting, and of course, we got to get to the good side of the ball, the defense, the Kirby Smart special. But before we get into all that, we here wanted to extend a gratitude to everybody who watched last week. We were super excited to get this podcast up and rolling, get it off the ground, and the positive reviews and the positive comments, man, that got us even more excited for the future. We got a lot planned. We're super excited about, talking about the Dogs, getting involved with some of you fans. So we're just ready for the season to start, and man, it's close. It's getting closer by the day. We're all excited here. If I keep talking about it, I'm getting more excited. So let's get y'all over to the intro and let's get cooking.
10, 12, he's running over people. Oh, you hurt the walking.
There he goes in the corner again, and we jump up. Touchdown! Oh, God, a touchdown in the corner.
We just stepped on their face with a hobnailed boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
Swift's got running room. Swift by the defense. 40, 30. They won't catch him. Go, Swift, into the end zone. Touchdown! The freshman just ran it back to Philadelphia. 50, 10, 5. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Dogs win it. We're headed to Atlanta. Near sideline, and it's intercepted. Intercepted. Keely Ringo at the 21. Off he goes. 40, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. Near sideline. Breaks the tackle. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Georgia.
I know I'm asking a lot, you guys, but hunker it down one more time.
And like Munson, I'm going to ask you one question, or not one question, one request, actually. Wherever you're watching this, if you're watching on YouTube or listening in your car, on your phone, while you're listening to this, take 10 seconds, pull out your phone, go to either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and make sure you're subscribed. Whether you're going to watch on YouTube or not, make sure you're subscribed. And if you're feeling frisky, hit one of the stars. Give us a review. And listen, we're not asking for 5-star reviews. We're not begging for that. We saw the 2-star review, whoever that was out there. We saw it, and we appreciate it. Because you think it was a knock, it just made us work harder. So please help us do that. Without further ado, let's talk some ball. The biggest news breaking from yesterday, Kirby Smart will be in Athens for a long, long time, and hopefully a long, long time after that. Jake, you tweeted out it was worth every penny. Tell me why.
I mean, there were rumblings of this was going to happen. I can't exactly say I'm surprised, but I am very happy it got it done. He's going to be a $10 million man now. That's definitely a lot of money for a college football coach. But Kirby's worth every penny, man. You see what he brings to this program, not in terms of, wins and losses, but he feels like he is Georgia football at this point. And we have the details on here too. Yeah, so go ahead.
No, you got. Tell me the details real quick.
Yeah, the extension that he had in 2018 was for 7 years, and they pretty much ripped up the last 2 years of it. He got 10 years, $112.5 million, $10.25 million per year. That should escalate to $12.25 million by 2031. So, I mean, it's a healthy raise nonetheless. So it's really exciting to lock him up. Yeah.
Yeah, you can live off of that for sure. And I know Brooks tweeted out today that like he's one of those coaches at this point where you rip up the dollar value when like the market's right, like when he's due for an upgrade, you upgrade him. Like he's that good. One of the like my favorite things to do with Kirby Smart at this point is go back to some of those teams you thought were really, really good. Like think about 2012. Like you think about 2012, you're like, man, our defense was actually pretty good that year. Dude, you go watch that team, like reruns of games, and it's different. Like the team that's on the field right now is different. Like even thinking back to 2017 when our defense was great. Like look at the front four compared to the front four last year. Like it's a different animal, and he just keeps getting better and better and better. And that's why he's going to stay in Athens. And I'm pumped. I mean, I've been a Kirby guy from the jump. Just the way he came in, electrified the building, got to recruiting. That's what it takes in today's game. Like get the fans involved, get recruiting, and go win games.
You think about it, there's nobody else. Like who I couldn't even picture anybody else coaching Georgia.
No. Well, that's what I've always thought all the time. Like when people, a couple years ago, there was rumblings. There's always rumblings about people, wanting to get rid of Kirby Smart and stuff. I don't know about it anymore, but like I'm sitting there thinking, who are you going to bring in? Like, seriously, think about this. You turn into Tennessee, like, in all honesty, and I'm not even trying to hate right now. I do hate a lot, but they get rid of Fulmer, and they're just lost. They're like, well, what do we do now? And they just scramble, bring in, get Kiffin, he leaves, and then you're like, all right, what do we do? You're just in purgatory. You're in head coaching purgatory. And so, getting a guy like Kirby Smart locked down for the remainder of, hopefully his career, but it's going to be fun years in Athens. And I say all that to say, just enjoy it, because we're really, really good product on the field. And that kind of leads us into the media days. And I thought Kirby had a great showing. For me, media day is really just looking forward to the season. Like, it's when media day happens, the season's around the corner. I know journalists do a dynamic warm up before it starts. Like, they're so fired up. But did you pull any big storylines out of what Kirby said or anybody else said, Jake?
Nah, nothing crazy. It was just business as usual. That's kind of my whole thing, man. I think you're better off if you don't make any noise at media day. You don't want to end up like Clark Lee over at Vanderbilt talking about we're going to be one of the best teams in the country in a few years. I get he has to say that, but I would rather my team not be the butt of the jokes and just business as usual.
Does he have to say that, though? That's what I was telling somebody here that mentioned that. Like, you can say we're really excited about our program moving forward, or, we got a lot of good players coming in. To say something like that.
Do you think he just left the stage? It was like,
yeah. It's like we talk about sometimes
that, dude.
where you're live recording or something, and we got to practice for that because we don't want to say anything crazy. That guy gets on the stage, he's walking off. He's like, dude, I really just said that. Like, I just said Vanderbilt's going to be the best program.
It's like, you think anybody noticed?
Pulls up Twitter, vomits. Yeah, really the only thing that I took out of it, because we'll get into this next, but a lot of talk on Kirby Smart and NIL and whether he's fully invested in it, this, that, and another. Now there's reports coming out that he's against it and this, that, and another, which is nuts. But he came out and made a statement. Griff, do you have that video loaded in?
I do.
Yeah, can you
pull it up right now?
Yeah. I thought this was a statement.
Had the highest paid defensive lineman last year in NIL in Jordan Davis. We have the highest paid tight end in Brock Bowers in terms of NIL. Keely Ringo, I would argue, is probably one of the highest paid corners there is in NIL. So NIL can be a good thing, and they can learn to manage money at a young age. But to use it as inducement to get a young man to go to your school is not good for anybody or the game. I don't have the answer for how to guardrail that. But NIL has been good to Georgia, and it's been good to our.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was a statement to pull from media day. Just him pretty much saying that he's all for it, got to have parameters, which is what Nick Saban's been saying for 4 months now.
Yeah, and when you have two guys that are going to be perennial contenders saying that there needs to be some type of regulations in place, there probably needs to be some type of. These are the guys that have probably benefiting from it the most, besides your Miamis and your Texas A&Ms and your USCs. But yeah, I think the notion that Kirby is against NIL would be ridiculous because he's not somebody that's going to get left behind by something like that. It is something that you just have to deal with, but I think there will be parameters sooner or later. And going on a bit of an NIL rant, at a certain point, some of these millionaires and billionaires are not going to be getting returns on their investment. There's going to be some kid that they give $1 million to that just straight up doesn't pan out or transfers or something. And then I think that's when you're going to start to see the market correct. And people are not going to be willing to hand out all that money to these high school kids that aren't proven yet. Whenever they start losing those investments, because rich guys, they don't like losing money.
No, 100%. Yeah. There's a lot to chew on with NIL, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of it, as the show goes on, but let's talk some dogs. Big recruiting win. Let's start with the loss first. Let's start with Justice Haynes, which, kind of rattled social media a little bit, as it always does. I mean, there's always somebody in July that rattles Twitter and gets everybody up in arms. Griff, I know you had something to say about Haynes. What you got for us?
Yeah, that was obviously Georgia's number one target at running back. And now it's just kind of a wait and see thing with that, being such a big loss. I mean, we've got some other guys out there, but nothing that too crazy. And so it's just kind of a thing that we're scrambling now to get a running back in that class, but it'll pan out for us. It always does at running back.
Yeah. And you got Del McGee. That's a guy you got to really trust. He's earned that. He's a guy who's earned that trust. And I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Jake, you said you just talked about a route in NIL. I'm going to use this as a platform to say something that's pretty close to my heart. So Justice Haynes, if you noticed in his interview after he committed, he mentioned baseball. He mentioned the baseball facilities. And listen, you can say what you want, like he's never going to play baseball. He's not going to do this, that, and another. I can promise you at this point right now, he wants to play baseball. And he's really, really good. I went and watched video. He's a lefty up to 92, 93. Like he can pitch in the SEC. It's not like he's not capable of doing it. So I say that to say this. A lot of people laughed at Coach Strickland earlier in the year when he talked about baseball facilities and needing an upgrade and things of that nature. Guys, I'm telling you, Georgia is so far behind everyone else in the SEC. The only place that has worse facilities than us is Missouri. I promise. That is not a reach. Everywhere I went, they're way further upgraded than Georgia. And something has to happen. You know, that goes for the baseball team. That goes for recruiting. Like when Justin Fields was getting recruited, he wanted that baseball offer. Kirby Smart came to Scott Strickland, asked him to give him the offer, and Strick was like, yeah, sure, of course. And he was good. Like he could have played. But, you know, naturally when kids are that talented at football, they usually stick to it. But it is a recruiting tool, and things need to be done. And I talked to Coach Strickland and Coach Kenny not long ago. Things are going to get done. Like it's going to come, whether it's this after this year or the following year. Things are going to happen. Josh Brooks is the man, and they're excited about it. But I just say all that to say, like, it's a serious, serious deal. And kids are committing to go to Georgia right now because that's the only place they want to go, not because something is pulling them there. That's even how I was.
And you know, you talk about how much talent there is in this state, you know, football wise. Baseball is, I mean, you watch the MLB draft, it feels like half the kids are out of Georgia. Yeah. You know, it's still the same talent rich states: Georgia, Florida, Texas, California. And you know, it's a place that, you know, you got to be the best in your own state. And right now the baseball team isn't, but I'm sure we won't get too far into that. But
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I just, you know, it is a problem. It's an issue that is going to be fixed, and I look forward to it. But just want to kind of get everybody on that radar, because it's like everywhere is upgraded within the last 2 or 3 years, and if you don't do it, you're going to get left behind. So excited to see what comes out of those, though, because it can be really, really nice. Because Foley is a great spot to watch a game, and it can only improve, really. Shout out to everybody on Twitter this week. If you're not following us on Twitter, please do it, because we've had some cool stuff. Griffin made a sick graphic this week on the $15 and build your own UGA offense. It was evident where the value was. Like, running backs at Georgia are incredible. Like, we knew that going in, but when you see it, you're like, wow, Sony Michel for $1. That's nuts. Jake, what was the team you tweeted out that was the winner?
But so I feel like the big trend here that we had, everybody went with Brock Bowers, obviously, and everybody went with Isaiah Wynn, because Isaiah Wynn was only $1, and that's still pretty solid. You know, that's a guy who almost won a national championship, first round pick. I had Stafford for $5, Moreno for $2, Pickens for $2, Isaiah Wynn for the $1, and then Brock Bowers for $5. Mm-hmm. And I said I was just going to go vertical every game, and nobody could really do anything about it.
Yeah, I like that team a lot. I thought that team was solid. Griff, you went the David Green route, right?
Yeah. I wanted to go Aaron Murray. Like, Aaron Murray is literally my favorite UGA player ever. So I wanted to go Aaron Murray, but I really wanted to have Todd, and I just didn't see that much difference in David Green and Aaron Murray to like take Chubb over Todd. And I would have rather had Todd. So I took Todd. Pickens, though, Bowers, Isaiah Wynn, all the same. Yeah. So
I like both those teams a lot. Shout out to Matthew.
I was going to say, good on you, Griff, because a brother like me would have just changed the graphic. I would have just
that's true. That's true.
To fit whatever I wanted. So
Griff did have complete control over that. A couple of good ones that I saw that I bookmarked. Matthew Brooks. Looking at this again, though, you know, the math adds up. Shout out Matthew Brooks. Quarterback Stafford, running back Sony, receiver Pickens, tight end Bowers, O-line Wynn. I like that team a lot. I definitely think the value's in running back and O-line, like he did. And then obviously Bowers is just head and shoulders above everybody. So shout out that team. And this is one team that I didn't see very often, but I like. Herschel Walker, Aaron Murray, Nick Chubb, George Pickens, Isaiah Wynn. Solid team. That's from the cash out kid, Tricky Terrence, with DeJounte Murray as his profile pick, which is nasty.
Love that.
But yeah, those are some good teams. That was a lot of fun. We'll do one with the defense soon, which I'm kind of excited for, because that's going to be full full of absolute.
That was gonna be hard.
Yeah, this guy was gonna be really, really tough.
Champ Bailey, $5 is a lock for me already. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's
an absolute dog.
too easy.
Dog. All right, let's get into the fun part, boys. It's time to break down the defense. We talked offense last week. It really got me excited about the offense because when you start looking at it on paper, you're like, oh man, we're deep. Well, if you think we're deep on offense, we got a whole other side of the ball that is the deepest in the country, in my opinion, still. Don't care what anybody says. The defense. Let's start off with remembering who we have on staff. Number 1, Kirby, who we've already talked about. Number 2, Will Muschamp is officially a co-DC, along with Schumann, who I've heard nothing but good things about. Obviously, we know what he can do on the recruiting trail, but in terms of communicating with the players, relaying the defense, everything I've heard has been superb. So I think there's a match made in heaven between those two guys. And let's not forget that Kirby and Will Muschamp were coaching at Valdosta State back in the day together, where they were cooking up a lot of these schemes that they run today. And Valdosta State was getting all that for $39,000 combined. You talk about a staff. What do you think the impact Muschamp brings in this new role, Jake?
I mean, there's no doubt that Will Muschamp can coach a defense. That's never been in question. Head coaching, not everybody has the personality for that. Not everybody has the wherewithal. I'm not saying he can't coach, but to do like a whole program. Some people really thrive on one side of the ball. And you look at a guy like Muschamp, he knows what he's doing when he's calling a defense, and he can get you fired up. We've seen him on the sidelines. That man looks like he's going to bust a blood vessel sometimes. He's getting so mad at his players, and he's firing those boys up. And I think that's really what he brings. He brings a lot of energy.
You speak on that. I want to see it. Like last year, we didn't see it. He was kind of the reserve guy, glasses on, checking out his notepad. I want to see him firing some guys up. I want to see him.
Schumann will be in the box this year, and he'll be on the field. So I think we'll get a little bit more of that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and you had that clip on Twitter that surfaces is hilarious with Saban and Muschamp just getting into that defense at LSU, both together, like fingers pointing, same thing. Love it. I love it. I hope to see some of that unfiltered Muschamp. So I want to start with the D-line. It all starts up front. And you look back over the years and you think about some good guys we've had on the line, but you don't realize how really thin it's been in terms of guys put in the NFL. It's no longer like that. Obviously, we had 2 first-round picks in Jordan Davis and Devontae White, which is a tough loss for anyone. But we bring back a guy who's going to be a top 5 pick in Jalen Carter. Who do you guys see kind of filling in those other 2 spots?
Griff, you go first on this one.
I think Bear Alexander, Nazir Stackhouse. I mean, those guys were highly touted recruits. They've been kind of waiting on the bench for their chance. I mean, I think they definitely get some shots at some reps this year. I mean, outside of that, just in terms of the middle, and those guys are the 2 names that come to mind first.
Yeah.
TID is an interesting guy that I think could break out. He could have a big year.
We had a huge G-Day. He was kind of the winner of the spring game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think obviously Georgia rotates so heavy. You're going to see all of these guys.
Yeah.
But I think TID could really, really make a name for himself and probably make some money because you're talking about 2 figuratively and literally big holes in Jordan Davis and Devontae White no longer on the squad. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of bodies moving in, a lot of names you're going to have to learn, if you don't know the roster completely, which is, obviously fine.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a heavy rotation, but it's all led by Jalen Carter. I agree with the guys at the combine when they were talking about Jordan Davis. I think Jalen Carter's the best out of those 3, including Wyatt and Jordan Davis, who are 2 pretty good ball players.
Yeah, Jalen's different, man. Just the way he plays, the way he uses his hands. He's an NFL guy, and he's going to be one for a long time. But there's 2 guys that y'all didn't hit on that I'll hit on. Tramell, Walther, and Zion Lowe, who, if you look back over Kirby's tenure, it's not that he gives the older guys the benefit of the doubt, but I think he values the people who put in the work for that long, stay the course, and know the playbook. And he's going to let them get run. You think about Amir Speed last year over Keeley. You think about some of the guys over the years who just have played for a little bit, even alternated. You think Monty Rice, Tay Crowder dynamic, where they're playing up the middle. You got N'Kobe waiting there who's rotating in, but those guys are getting a heavy dosage of the run because Kirby trusts them. And that's a big part of running his defense is trust. So I think those guys are going to get every opportunity to make a splash. And I think they're very talented guys. I think you got to rotate Christian Miller in there. I've heard good things about him throughout camp. So, but like you said, one of the best parts about Kirby's defense is the way he rotates guys in, because you get to see everybody. I know some people want to say, well, why don't you just keep Jordan Davis out there all the time? Why don't you keep Devontae White out there all the time? Well, now we have a lot of guys seasoned who would not be. And I think that is an awesome thing that he does. And so it's exciting to get to see all these guys. Speaking of turnover, we have a lot of turnover at the linebacker position. And I put out something this morning on which two linebackers are you going to take? And the cool part for me was nobody had the same answer for the most part. It was a mixture of all two different guys, which I think is exciting because every guy being mentioned is ultra talented, ultra fast, ultra competitive. So you have this competition working where the cream of the crop's going to rise. But Griff, tell us what we're going to have to replace at this position in terms of numbers.
Okay, so between Nakobe, Quay, and Channing all last year, you're replacing 206 total tackles, 23 and a half tackles for loss, and 13 sacks, all from those three guys.
So we're pretty much replacing Will Anderson. Just the middle linebacker spot in terms of stats. But no, seriously, like that's a gaping hole. And everybody knows what Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker and Channing meant to this team. They've been guys who highly touted out of high school, and then they completely lived up to expectations. Just in terms of leadership, in terms of play, like everybody can speak highly of them. And off ball, so middle linebackers, Jake, who are two guys you're kind of looking at to maybe, let's say, start the season and then end?
I think Tresman Marshall is going to be a lock to start the season. I feel like, the experience that we talk about, he's a redshirt junior, older guy. And I think JDJ is going to be, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to start out, especially, especially in rundowns. I'm interested to see what Xavier Sori can do, though. He's got an uphill battle, too, with Smell Mondon in front of him and Ryan Davis. And him and Jalen Walker are the two young guys that I think I like the most so far. Jalen Walker, I have very, very high expectations for. So we'll see how if he gets a little bit of burn this year, he's going to have to play really well, barring any injuries for him to get on the field. But I think he's good enough to do it.
Yeah, no, like I just said on the D-line, the older guys are going to get every opportunity. And the two guys you mentioned, I thought really popped in terms of coming in the game last year at the end. I thought both of them guys really, really stuck out. Trez and JDJ, I thought played really well. But right, like you said, Ryan Davis and Trez, I think they're going to get every opportunity. But these guys behind them are nuts. I've been looking to see Smile Mondon play for a while just because he burns. I mean, he's an absolute burner. You've heard nothing but good things about him. Freak. I mean, he looks like he's not from this planet. So there's so much talent there. And I don't know that I would say that some of those guys, like you said, Sori and Mondon are probably the most talented. So like if Trez and Ryan gets a start, like they're going to have to really play. They're going to have to pull like the Tay Crowder type where there's probably guys more talented behind him, but you can't take that man off the field because of what he's doing. So
definitely.
I'm excited to see that position work. And like we said, there's going to be rotations. We're going to see them all. So it's going to be fun to watch how that plays out this year and see if somebody can really step up and fill that leadership role.
I want to see who the Nakobe is of this defense. You can't replace Nakobe Dean. You can't replace his mind as a football player, but I want to see who's out there making calls, getting guys in the right spots and calling out plays because it's going to have to be one of these guys. And I think whoever takes over that role will easily be Kirby's number one man.
Well, that's what's fun about it because the speed and stuff will pop. Like, that pops quick. You see that like the first play they're in. But then like as the fourth quarter runs along and let's say Smile makes a play on the sideline, you're like, man, he's been on every play. And you're like, well, that might speak to his instincts there. Like you see it, you see the way he reacts, and then you like build up over time. You're like, this guy's on every play. And so that's kind of how Nakobe Dean was. Like he'd make some big plays, and then at the end of the game, you'd look at the stat sheet and you're like, well, he had 13 tackles. Like it was nuts what he did. So I agree with you there. But I spoke on leadership. And the leadership I feel like is definitely going to come from coming off the edge. Nolan Smith he's been a guy who has been vocal since he got on campus, kind of like Richard LeCount was, just constantly vocal. Him. He's always on the screen saying something. He's a guy who is going to have a big year, in my opinion. He was at the end of the year last year. I thought he was one of the best players on the field sometimes, just like in terms of the plays he was making. And then on the other side of the ball, Jake, what do you got? I mean, Robert Bill is a guy who we're not really talking about much, but he led the team in sacks.
Yeah, and if we're talking about a non-Adam Anderson suspension, then does Beal even come back this year? Does he a grad transfer or something like that? But he's going to have a huge role, and he made some really big plays that a lot of times you may not have noticed, but like you said, he ended up being the leader in sacks, and I think he could end up with more sacks than Nolan this year. He just did it last year.
Right.
But in terms of, being an NFL prospect, I think Nolan's a guy that's going to get a lot of attention around then, even with the, the lack of arm length that you look for. I think Nolan's going to have a huge year, especially as a run defender. And hey, being a quality run defender got Trayvon Walker drafted first overall. I don't think Nolan's going to go first, but you can definitely make some money in the NFL doing that.
Yeah. He's just a solid player. Like he seems like a guy who just will put his nose in the dirt and like you said, hold that edge and let the other boys eat. But yeah, I'm excited to watch Robert Beal because this isn't just some guy we pulled off the street. Like he was a highly touted recruit. He's a dude, So I have high expectations for him coming into kind of that year two of being a starter. I expect big things. But I'm also looking forward to some of the guys that are coming in after them. I know you mentioned Sherman on Twitter. Dude, that guy on kickoff, he looks like a monster running down the field. What do you expect from him?
Hey, he's a freak athlete, man. And, good things happen when you have, Glenn Schumann, pulling the strings and freak athletes on the field.
Yeah.
You got an amazing coaching staff and you got that amount of raw talent and ability. Anything can happen. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's a real breakout candidate. I like Chaz Chambliss to get some burn too. He's also a really good athlete. We've heard about him for a while. He's made some plays on special teams. I think Chambliss will force himself into more playing time.
He's another guy who looked great when he came at the end of games. Like I thought he always, he obviously played hard. He had the targeting call in the Michigan game, which was nuts, but he absolutely decleated that dude. So he's definitely guys popping, and I'm looking for Marvin Jones too. Like I was just going through his high school clips. Like he's that guy, like he's just relentless. He's a big dude. I look forward to seeing what he can do, but definitely a strong group there. That's one of those positions where, like I keep saying this about Kirby, when he got here, we had good ones, but not like we have now. Like Lorenzo Carter and Davin Bellamy were awesome. They played great. These guys have so much potential to do even what they couldn't do, just in talent limitations, But
Griff, what do you think?
Yeah, I had one more thought on Nolan Smith. I was watching the Year of the Dog thing that was on SEC Network the other night. And really cool thing, we posted on Twitter and whatnot. But in one of the clips, it was the clip of where Channing Tindall got that sack on Bryce Young on their first offensive drive. And they're on the sideline, and Nolan Smith is like, I'll slash and you get him. Like, I just feel like that's a really good leadership quality. Like, he's like, I'm going to give up. Like, I don't care about my stats. Like, I just want somebody to make the play. And, like, I think that's what makes our defense work so well is just – all our guys have that mentality, and like they don't care what it looks like at the end of the game in the box score, as long as on the scoreboard, Georgia's on top.
And that's
something that really frustrated. Yeah, that's something that really frustrated me leading up into the draft process as well, because I was a big advocate of Trayvon Walker going first. I thought he was the best prospect. I think he should have went first. And everybody kept saying, oh, he doesn't have any sacks. He doesn't have any sacks. That's not what he's asked to do. And he's also rotated very, very often. And he was probably the best runner defender coming out of college in the entire class. And, just because, he didn't get as many sacks, watch the games. You got to watch the games.
I mean, he played inside.
That's really what it boils down to.
He played inside most of the time on defense. Like he's not going to have the same number of sacks that people coming off the edge was going to get. But I guarantee you in the NFL he will. Like I'm guaranteed that. Yeah. So this is a position group where, Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp this is going to be the strength of the team, I think, in most years is the secondary, and it just got ranked number 1 by PFF, which doesn't mean a whole lot with PFF. They're hit or miss, but it does speak to how talented we are. And obviously Keely Ringo is the front runner here, or I guess the front page guy. He's going to be probably a top 10 pick. He's the real deal. He was the top corner in the country a couple years ago. He's lived up to it, played really well, earned a spot last year. And he's a guy where, you have one guy on the side of the field that's locked down. That's big time. But I'm interested to see what happens on this other side of the ball. Jake, you got your eye on anybody over there?
Yeah, really, I mean, Kamari Lassiter feels like he's going to be the guy. I think Dalen Everett could push him for some playing time. I think he's going to get onto the field somehow. And I think my biggest point of contention, the guy that I'm going to be watching the most, is Tai Ki Smith. He was the number 1 ranked transfer 2 years ago when he came over from West Virginia. Was hurt. I think he played 1 game last year, maybe, and then he got hurt again. He could really make himself some money in the NFL. He has a fantastic build, fantastic skill set. If you watched him at West Virginia, really talented player. If he could stay healthy this year, he could push to be, an early day 2 or a first round pick. I think he's a guy that is that talented.
Yeah, I'm super excited about our safeties. Like, it's always nice knowing you have some experience on the back end, because it's such an important position. It doesn't, I feel like, get a lot of love in terms of how important it is. But the teams that have really good defense have really good safeties. And we saw what a guy like missing Chris Smith at the end of the year, him not being 100% healthy against Bama that first game. Like, it was tough, like missing him was huge. And he's a guy who he has the ultimate Kirby Smart trust. And that's him. And goes for, let's throw William Poole in there too, who's probably going to be the head guy for Star. Like those are 2 guys who put in some serious work over the years. Like, they're a part of Kirby's either his first or second recruiting class. And they're just now really getting that love and getting that playing time. And they've made the absolute most of it. I have the utmost respect for William Poole after the fire he was under after the first Bama game and the way he competed that next Bama game. He was a completely different player. He made the huge play on that 3rd down to make him punt the ball. Like, he's a guy who he's got to have a lot of confidence after that going into the year. I feel great about this position group. You mentioned Dalen Everett. I think Nyland Green's a guy to watch. I think he's a guy who's been ultra talented since he got to campus. You have the Starks, you have the Singletaries, and you got to mention Dirty Dan in here. I mean, Dirty Dan is the man. He's the guy who's going to go out there and he's going to do what he needs to do. That's why he got on the field. He's a walk-on, got on the field.
It's crazy if you think about it. Just of those 4 guys that they brought in last year: Humphrey, Thomas, Stark, Singletary, and Everett. You talk about, you could probably put those 5 guys out there and still have a top 5 secondary in the SEC as true freshmen. Those guys are that good.
You honestly forget about how good that class was until you go back and look in terms of secondary. Yeah. Like, nuts. Like, probably one of the best secondary classes ever signed and that I've seen.
I agree.
So, I mean, we talk about all this stuff, and man, this defense is special. I want to give a shout out to the coaching staff, which I know we have multiple times already, but Griffin, you were talking about it. Nolan Smith is willing to slash so somebody else can get a sack. To get 5-star guys to do that, like highly touted guys who've been the best players at their position for their entire life, best players on the field for their entire life, to come in and sacrifice and do things like that is an absolute testament to Kirby Smart. It's a testament to Dan Lanning when he was here, testament to Schumann, all these guys that clearly they do something right to get the players to buy in. And it takes a special type of character from the player too. And that goes into recruiting, and just a big shout out there. But the big question I have is for you guys, what does this defense need to do this year for them to be deemed successful? Because they're not going to be last year's defense. That's impossible. It's the best defense ever. Griff, just tell some of the numbers that make it so mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, first off, last year you literally had 5 guys picked in the first round of the draft on defense, and then 8 total, and that's insane. That's like almost a whole defense out there getting drafted. We are first in points per game in the nation with 10.2 points per game, second in rushing yards allowed per game, second in rushing alloweds per attempt, and then we were 18th in passing yards, so not as good there, but still very good.
Yeah, and teams were passing constantly because they were down the whole game, because they were just being smothered and they couldn't run the ball. And I think if you look at Georgia's defense last year, I'm not afraid to call them the best defense in modern college football history. I don't think that's a stretch, especially with the way offenses are today. And, they're not going to be last year's defense, and people have to understand that and have to be a little patient with them. I think they're going to be successful if they can control the game like that defense, though, which I don't think is crazy to think. I think they can still get stops. I think they can still force teams out of their game plan pretty much immediately with the talent and coaching that they have. And I don't think that we're going to see a huge step back like everybody thinks that we will. I think games will be a little bit more balanced, where we see Georgia may have to take a little bit more initiative on offense. But as far as the defense goes, I think they're still going to be fantastic. They're still going to be a top 5 unit in college football. Not worried at all.
Yeah, I mean, when you got a top 5 pick on the line, you got a top 10 pick on the outside, like that's how you build a team. Like, that's how any NFL team wants to build a team. You got so much talent up front. You got good guys coming off the edge. Yeah, I'm really, like, I don't think we ever have to be worried about a defense with this coaching staff headed into a year. You know, against Oregon, you might see some bust. You know, you might see some things that we're not accustomed to. But I feel like by the end of the year, this is going to be shored up. There's too much talent, too good at coaching. So I feel really, really good about this team going into this year. I'm actually excited because for so long we've known what to expect on the defense. Like, you know, Nakobe's going to be out there. You know, Jordan. You know, Devontae. We got a lot of unknowns here, but I'm excited because there's so much talent. This is why you recruit so well. So let's kick off now. I'm ready to roll. But that pretty much wraps up what we got for this week. I'm sure we got another eventful week ahead of us. We don't really have the schedule filled out yet, but we'll definitely have something to talk about next week. I think we might venture into some SEC East preview. So definitely come in for that. Got a lot to talk about. You know how we feel about a lot of these teams in the SEC East. So you might get some raw, unfiltered content next week. But like I said, thanks for listening in. We really enjoy doing this, and we can't wait to continue doing it and going forward and getting better. So let's do it. Go Dogs. Have a good week.